I have to say, I'm feeling pretty good in the early part of this 2013 NFL season when it comes to my weekly picks of the games. In week 2, which was the first week I started doing picks this year, I went 10-5. That's okay. This past week, week 3, I did even better. Went 12-4, called a couple of big upsets, so to speak, picking the Dolphins, picking the Indianapolis Colts. There was more than one comment that laughed at me, I believe, for picking the Colts over the 49ers. Well, let me say this. LOL, LOL, LMAO, LMFAO, ha 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 ha. So through 2 weeks of predictions, I'm 22-9. I want to do better, but it's not bad. So hopefully at least I'm establishing some credibility to you, the people that are actually taking the time to watch me in these videos. And maybe you're actually watching these videos before you fill out your weekly pools, whether it be online or at work or at school or whatever the case might be. And maybe I can help you win some money throughout this 2013 NFL season. You can only hope, right? You just have to cut me my standard, stud fee of like 65%. Other than that, it's all good. Use my picks all you want, by all means. But let's take a look ahead at week 4 of this 2013 NFL season and kind of some of the games I'm paying attention to the most and some of the surprises I have coming up in store for this week. Starting off with the Thursday night game, an NFC West matchup between two 1-2 teams. The San Francisco 49ers traveling to St. Louis to take on the Rams. A lot of you, I'm sure, are surprised that the 49ers are 1-2 and a very unimpressive 1-2 at this point in time. I'm not. I told you before the season started, I thought this team was going to finish 3rd in the NFC West behind the St. Louis Rams, where they're traveling to in week number 4. The Rams have not been all that impressive themselves either. They're 1-2 as well, and they've really been kind of boat raced in the last 2 games, getting way behind and then trying to play catch up. It's just not a successful formula to consistently win at the NFL level. The Rams have to do better. Their defense, to me, has been very disappointing, especially their secondary. Not very good through 3 weeks of this season. You look at the 49ers, for them, their defense, not all that great, and their offense really has not been that great the past 2 weeks. They just look like they lack explosiveness. They lack big playability. They lack talent at the skill positions. They really do. Kaepernick struggled a little bit. Bolden, Vernon Davis, good, but they really don't have anything else. Rams offensively, they need to do more to get Tavon Austin involved farther down the field. Enough with the 4- and 5-yard jobs. They need to try and utilize his great quickness, his great speed, and have him stretch the field more in the passing game, even with Sam Bradford being a noodle-arm quarterback. When I look at this matchup, I'm going to, for no other reason than standing behind my prediction before the season started, I'm going to pick the St. Louis Rams to beat the San Francisco 49ers in week number 4. I really feel this is almost a pick'em game. If you sit there, the 49ers are going to go in there and kick the Rams' ass. Why would you say that? Just because the 49ers went to the Super Bowl last year? That was last year. That's not this year. Their offensive line is playing like crap. Their skill position players aren't that good. Kaepernick's looked bad the past 2 games. And the 49ers' defense isn't all that good. With all those things being said, I just like the Rams a little bit better right now, so that's why I'm picking them. 3 early games on Sunday that I'm really going to pay attention to. The first one, of course, involves my Bears. Get used to it. It's a homer thing. It's going to happen. Most every week I'm going to profile the Bears game, especially when they're playing this well. They're 3-0 right now. They're traveling to Detroit to take on the 2-1 Lions. This is a very interesting early season matchup in the NFC North. If the Lions can find the way to beat a quality opponent like the Chicago Bears at home, then this gets them off to a 3-1 start, has them thinking potentially playoffs, maybe sticking around and contending in the division all year long. Whereas if the Bears can find a way to win this game, they knock the Lions down to 2-2. The Bears would be 4-0. There would be 2 games ahead of the Detroit Lions, and for all intents and purposes, due to tiebreakers, more like almost 2.5 or 3 games. They'd be a couple of games ahead of the Green Bay Packers. The Bears would be controlling their own destiny. So it is really, in Week 4, a huge matchup for both teams. When I look at this matchup on paper, I think in terms of a balanced, more complete team, the Bears have the edge. The Lions are playing at home. It's not like Ford Field is necessarily the toughest place to play. So I am going to stick with my guys, and I'm going to pick the Chicago Bears. Then you look at the London game. Ooh, these are the representatives we're sending to London. Ooh, not so good. 2 0-3 teams, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Minnesota Vikings. Oh, God. There's not really a whole lot of analysis that I'm going to make here. I'll just go with the team that has the best player on the field. That's Adrian Peterson and the Minnesota Vikings. And let's hope this game isn't a suckfest. How about that? I am curious to see if Le'Veon Bell is actually going to play for the Steelers, if he's going to start in Week 4 for the Steelers, and how productive and effective he's going to be, because maybe he can inject a little life into that Steelers offense that, even though it showed some flashes in Week number 3 against the Bears, still lacks balance and still isn't all that good. Then you look at the big early game on Sunday. You look at the Seattle Seahawks traveling to Houston to take on the Texans. The Texans kind of got steamrolled in the second half last week against the Baltimore Ravens. The Texans haven't looked all that impressive, frankly, the first 3 weeks of the year. They really, really haven't. And you look at the Seahawks, they've been perhaps the most all-around impressive team in the NFL in terms of a combination of offense, defense, everything as a team. The most impressive team through the first 3 weeks of the NFL season. So when I look at this, Seattle, their combination of offense and defense, is better than the Texans. That's why I'm picking the Houston Texans to win in week number 4. The other reason I say this is when you look at this matchup, they may be without Andre Johnson. He may be limited. You know what? Sometimes, fuck all the scientific stuff. Forget all the damn analysis. Sometimes you just pick things to be a little different because most people are going to pick Seattle to win this game. If there's a game they're going to lose early on in the year, it could be on the road at a team who is still relatively talented, relatively good, and for a Texans team that has a pretty good defense. They can hang a little bit with the Seattle Seahawks, keep it a low-scoring game, and with their ability potentially to run the ball with Arian Foster and Ben Tate, the Texans can win this game, and that's why I'm going to pick them. Call me crazy. Maybe I am. I'm just going to pick the Texans, if for no other reason, just to be different than everybody else. There are 2 late Sunday afternoon matchups I'll be paying attention to. One's a matchup of a couple of surprise 2-1 teams. The Jets traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. When I look at this game, I like some of the things I've seen out of Geno Smith so far. I was a fan of his coming out of West Virginia. He does need to cut down on the turnovers. He needs to cut down on the poor decisions because no matter how much better he is than Mark Sanchez, which he is, and how much life he has injected, I feel, in some ways, into that Jets organization. And he's starting to establish himself maybe as a real building block to assemble that Jets team around in the future. Doesn't matter how good you are, you keep turning the ball over 2 or 3 times every single ball game, you're not going to be an NFL starting quarterback for long. It is ultimately a recipe for failure. I look at the Titans. Jake Locker hasn't been that impressive to me in 2013, although he did impress me with the way he handled that late game drive against the San Diego Chargers this past Sunday. The bottom line is, when I look at this game, I'm a little bit bigger on the Titans than I am the Jets. That's why I'm picking the Tennessee Titans to win at home. Then the other game, the Dallas Cowboys taking on the San Diego Chargers. I look at this and I say the Chargers easily could be 2-1. They could easily be 3-0, but they're 1-2. You look at the Dallas Cowboys, they're 2-1. They didn't lose to the Chiefs by much. 1 point? They could very easily be 3-0 themselves. A lot of things on paper point to the Dallas Cowboys winning this game. I think they are the better football team. But we're also talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and you guys know as good and well as I do a lot of times, you get the Dallas Cowboys, 1 week they'll look great, then the next week they look shaky, then the next week they dominate somebody, and then the next week they stub their toe and they play like absolute horse shit. And I get a sense that they may do that this week. So with no other really scientific evidence other than the fact that it's a trend of the Cowboys in recent years, I'm going to pick the San Diego Chargers in a bit of a surprise to win at home over the Cowboys. So the Sunday night game is a marquee matchup featuring 2 marquee quarterbacks. That's Tom Brady and his New England Patriots traveling to Atlanta to take on Matty Ice, Matt Ryan, and his Falcons. You look at this, you see the Falcons at 1-2, you see the Patriots at 3-0. I had some questions about the Falcons headed into this season. I wasn't sure how well they were going to be able to run the ball, and their ability to run the ball is kind of shaky. Their defense still has some holes in it. Roddy White still isn't healthy, so they're pretty much reliant on strictly just Julio Jones and Tony Gonzalez in the passing game. It's a hell of a combination to rely on, but it does take away another key cog in that Falcons offense, especially with their inability to consistently run the ball effectively. Now, when you look at the New England Patriots, yeah, they're 3-0, but they sure haven't been very impressive. You could say, well, they were more impressive in Week 3 against the Buccaneers, but that's the Buccaneers. They haven't won a game them damn selves. Week 1, they barely beat the Bills. Week 2, they barely beat the Jets. So I look at the Patriots and I think they're ripe for the pickings here, even for a Falcons team that I'm not all that high on. So give me the Atlanta Falcons. I think Matt Ryan at home will play a little bit better than Tom Brady. He has Julio Jones. He has Tony Gonzalez. Maybe he'll get a little something out of Roddy White. Tom Brady might get back Gronkowski for this game, but Gronkowski, he's still going to be trying to get fully healthy and get up to game speed. So it might take some time, for him to contribute. So yeah, give me the Atlanta Falcons over the New England Patriots on Sunday night. The Monday night matchup. You've got two kind of surprising 3-0 teams. I don't know who the schedule maker was, and when you look at it on paper, you're like, ooh, the Dolphins taking on the Saints in week 4? Ugh. Boy, you got lucky on this one. The 3-0 Dolphins traveling to the Superdome to take on the 3-0 New Orleans Saints. Something's got to give here. One of these teams is going to get off to a 4-0 start, and the other team's going to suffer its first loss of the year, unless both teams tie. And yes, Donovan McNabb, you can have a tie in the NFL, in case you still didn't know, dumbass. Anyways, when I look at this matchup, the Saints are really hard to beat at home. Drew Brees is a better quarterback than Ryan Tannehill. I really am interested to see how Ryan Tannehill responds to the Monday Night Spotlight, how he responds to facing a quarterback the caliber of Drew Brees. I think the Saints offense has more elements to it. It's more explosive. I think they have the ability to ultimately score more points. I do think Miami has a little bit more balance and a little bit more of a complete team. But you're playing the Saints, you're playing Drew Brees, you're playing them in the Superdome. I'm going to take the Saints in a close matchup on Monday night to beat the Miami Dolphins and go to 4-0, even though I'm still not fully sold that the Saints team is legit. A 4-0 start would still be a 4-0 start, and I think they're going to get off to that, beating the Dolphins on Monday night. I've actually got two upset specials for this week. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They're 3-0. They started off very well under Andy Reid. They've won more games already this year than they did in the entire 16-game stretch of the 2012 season. There's a lot to like about Kansas City. I like the way they're able to run the ball. They don't commit a lot of turnovers, and they play pretty solid defense. Definitely a playoff team, in my opinion. And there are so many things on paper pointing to them being able to just dominate the New York Giants, especially at home at Arrowhead Stadium. But this is the type of MO of Tom Coughlin coached Giants teams over the years, isn't it? They play like idiots. They turn the ball over. They just look terrible. And they have no business being able to hang with a team in a week. And then all of a sudden, an 0-3 Giants team like now will come out and surprise everybody and go on the road to Arrowhead and beat an undefeated Chiefs team. There's no real logic to it, but I'm just following history. Look at how many times Tom Coughlin coached teams have been like this. And they frustrate you when you watch them, and they look like they're going to fall apart. And then all of a sudden, they defy the odds and they beat somebody. That's what I think is going to happen. For no other reason than that, based off of history of the Giants under Coughlin over the years, I really think they're going to go to Arrowhead and beat the Chiefs. Call me crazy, but that's what I think. My other upset, I really think the Cleveland Browns are going to be able to stick a game to the Cincinnati Bengals and end up beating them. As long as they stick, this is contingent upon them sticking with Brian Hoyer at quarterback, because he definitely showed more promise and more life in week number 3 against the Vikings than what the Browns fans and organization have seen in the past year plus out of Brandon Weeden. Hoyer needs to be the man. He needs to remain the man. He needs to start. But when you look at this team, Jordan Cameron's going to be a matchup problem for the Cincinnati Bengals. They struggle to match up with opposing teams' tight ends, just like a lot of teams do. You've got Josh Gordon back. He had a big week in his return in week 3 against the Vikings. So Hoyer's got another weapon to throw to in the passing game. They might not have much of a running game right now, but I look at this Bengals team, I still think they're going to be the best team in the AFC North. But at times, they still play like the Bengals. They don't quite play up to their full potential. At times, they play undisciplined. They play with a lack of focus. And I think they're ripe for the picking here. Cleveland's at home. They just came off their first win of the year last week. They've got something that they can rally behind with a lot of people calling out and questioning the organization, understandably so, for the Trent Richardson trade. They've got a rallying cry now. So, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to take the Cleveland Browns to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. In week 2, first week of making picks this year, I went 10-5. Last week, I went 12-4. I'm curious to see how I do this week. If you think you could do better than the Schleg Daddy, by all means, you're welcome to post your picks in the comments section down below. Please try not to mock any of my picks this week, especially if it's one of your teams, because as a couple of 49er fans found out last week, it may very well bite you in the ass.